Okay, let's unpack this. We need to talk about the air in the room. You know, that specific feeling. You walk into a crowded party, or maybe you're just on the subway, rush hour,
Yeah.
and you're literally shoulder to shoulder with strangers, but the emotional distance just feels vast.
Right.
We're living in this really bizarre, heavy paradox. We have these like magic glass rectangles in our pockets that can beam our faces to the other side of the planet in milliseconds.
Right.
We have access to everyone, everywhere.
And yet, if you look at the actual data, and we have a lot of it to get through today, we're seeing this statistical spike in isolation that correlates almost perfectly with the rise of that magic technology.
It's the great paradox.
Hyper-connected but completely unanchored.
Exactly. Tethered to 1,000 things, but anchored to absolutely nothing.
Duh.
So, welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your host. For context, for those of you who might be new, I'm a medical doctor. My focus is primary care and lifestyle medicine. And I see the biological fallout of how we live. But I want to be clear right up front. I'm not here to read you a diagnostic manual. I'm here because of what I see in my exam room every single week. High-functioning people who are just quietly eroding.
And I'm coming at this from the other side of the glass. I spent the last decade as a product leader for a major global social media platform. I built the buttons you press, I designed the loops that keep you scrolling, and I recently left that world because I just couldn't reconcile the fact that the systems we designed to connect people, well, they're actually mechanically engineered to keep them just unmatched enough to keep clicking.
That is exactly why we're pairing up for this. This isn't a dating show.
No.
It's not a self-help lecture telling you to just get out there.
Yeah.
We're talking about something much bigger. We're talking about human sustainability.
Human sustainability. I love that framing. Because right now, the way we extract attention and emotion from each other, it's like an extractive industry.
Like script mining.
Yeah, exactly. It's not renewable. We are burning out our emotional resources way faster than we can replenish them.
We really are. So here's the roadmap for today. We're going to move past the generic, loneliness epidemic headlines. We all know it's there. We feel it. Instead, we're going to diagnose the mechanism. Why does it feel this way? Then we're going to look at a very specific and I think somewhat radical solution emerging from the UK. It's called the Blossom Society, or TBS. It's a concept that tries to completely flip the script.
But before we get to the solution, we have to understand the pathology. You got to understand the code, both the biological code and the software code, before you can even think about rewriting it.
So let's start with the human perspective, the symptoms. In my practice, I have this very specific type of patient that walks in constantly. I call them the fine on paper patient.
Fine on paper, I think a lot of us can probably relate to that. What's that profile look like?
Okay, so picture this. Usually mid-30s to mid-40s. They are successful. They've got the career track. The 401k is growing. They have a social circle. They go to weddings. Their calendar is, color-coded and full. By every external metric, they are thriving. But then they come in for a routine checkup, and I ask the standard question, how are you actually feeling? And the room just goes silent.
It's the pause. The pause says everything, doesn't it?
It is a heavy pause. And eventually, they'll say things like, I'm tired or I feel flat. But if we dig just a little deeper, the sentence I hear, verbatim over and over again is, I'm surrounded by people, but I feel completely alone. And I really want to clarify for everyone listening, these people aren't clinically broken. They don't necessarily need an SSRI. They are emotionally starved.
Malnourished. That's a powerful way to put it. It implies they're consuming something, but it has zero nutritional value.
Exactly. And this isn't just a feeling, it's a biological signal. Loneliness is like hunger or thirst. It's a warning. We are tribal animals, 10,000 years ago, if you were isolated, it meant a predator was about to get you. So when these patients feel isolated, their cortisol levels spike. Their inflammation markers go up. Their bodies are scanning for threats. And for my single patients, a huge part of this stress comes down to what I call audition culture.
Audition culture. That is a fantastic term for it. Break that down for us.
Well, just think about the mechanics of modern dating apps, right? It feels like a second job.
Yeah.
You're basically curating a resume, your profile. You polish it, you optimize your photos, you tweak your bio, and then you walk into this digital room to perform for strangers who are, frankly, looking for a reason to reject you. It's not an introduction, it's an audition. You're constantly on trial.
And the cognitive load of that is just massive. You can never let the mask drop.
You can't. Because you can't be vulnerable when you're auditioning. You have to be worthy. You have to prove you deserve basic attention. And this creates this defensive posture. You start anticipating rejection before you've even said hello.
Which highlights a distinction that I think is the absolute crux of the whole tech problem, and that's the difference between being noticed and being known.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's dig into that. Because the apps are incredible at getting us noticed.
Oh, they are optimization machines for notice, like a swipe, a view. These are all just quantitative units of attention. I can give you a dashboard that says, hey, you were noticed 50 times today, and that gives you a little hit of validation. But being known, that's qualitative. It requires context, continuity, safety. It takes time. Tech can't scale being known. It can only scale being noticed.
And humans need to be known.
Yeah.
That's the biological imperative.
Yeah.
But we're settling for being noticed because it's easier to access.
Exactly. And this is where I have to put my old product manager hat on and be the bearer of some bad news. We have to talk about why the system feels this way. Because a lot of people think, oh, the apps are just poorly designed or, people are just flaky.
So pull back the curtain. Is it bad design or is it something else?
It's not bad design. That is the really scary part. It is incredibly effective design for its intended goal. But the intended goal is not your well-being.
So what is the goal?
Retention and behavior modification. Look, when I was leading product teams, we did not have a metric on our dashboard that said, did this person feel deeply fulfilled today? Or did they find a life partner?
You'd think that would be the success metric for a connection app, right?
You would think. But logically, from a business standpoint, a satisfied user is a lost customer. If you find your person or you have a really fulfilling conversation that leads to a real-world relationship, what do? You put the phone down.
You delete the app.
You churn.
Right. So success equals deletion, which is a terrible business model for a subscription service.
It's the worst. So, whether it's conscious or subconscious, the whole design ethos of these platforms optimizes for a state of, slight dissatisfaction.
Slightly dissatisfied. That is chilling.
It's the sweet spot. You need the user to be hopeful enough to keep trying. So you give them just enough matches, just enough little crumbs of attention, but unsatisfied enough that they keep searching. We've built a world where connection is treated like a feature, something you toggle on or off.
Not a practice.
No, not a practice that requires effort.
I want to stick on that for a second. Connection as a feature versus a practice. I mean, in medicine, we talk about practice all the time. You practice sleep hygiene. You practice mindfulness. It's active.
Right. In the real world, connection is high friction. It involves awkward silences, misinterpreting a text. It involves smelling someone's bad breath or negotiating where to eat. That friction is the bonding mechanism. Navigating the awkwardness is how you build trust. But in tech, our job is to remove friction. We want frictionless entry. Push a button, get a human.
But when you remove the friction, you remove the investment. You remove the stakes.
Exactly. And when the stakes are zero, you get what we call the slot machine effect. You've probably heard this analogy, but I want to explain the actual neuroscience of it because it explains why your patients are so exhausted.
Please do. Because they describe it as an addiction, but it feels more like a fatigue.
Well, it's technically called variable ratio reinforcement. It's the strongest way to condition a behavior in any animal, including us. If you press a button and get a treat every time, you eventually get bored. If you press it and never get a treat, you quit. But if you press it and get a treat sometimes, unpredictably, your dopamine just spikes through the roof.
That's the maybe.
It's all about the maybe. Maybe this swipe is the one. Maybe this next notification is my soulmate. Your nervous system gets trapped in this loop of prediction error. You are constantly bracing for a reward that might not come.
And physiologically, that is just exhausting. That's why my patients are burning out. Their cortisol is up, their dopamine is crashing. They're on a roller coaster they didn't even agree to ride, just sitting on their couch.
And the end result is emotional numbness. You stop feeling the highs or the lows. You just keep pulling the lever.
Which brings us to us. Why are we talking about this now? Because honestly, complaining about dating apps is practically a national sport. We could sit here for an hour and just bash the algorithm.
It's the easiest thing in the world to do. And for a long time after I quit, that's all I did. I was just a cynic. I thought, well, we broke society. Good luck, everyone.
But we both reached a breaking point.
Yeah.
For me, it was realizing I was treating the symptoms of a cultural illness with, like, Band-Aids.
Yeah.
I'm prescribing sleep hygiene and sunlight to people who are fundamentally lonely because they don't know how to connect anymore. I felt like I was mopping up water while the faucet was still gushing.
And for me, it was realizing that I couldn't just wash my hands of it. I helped build this culture. I watched my own friends collapse under the system I helped prop up. And then we met at that dinner in the Bay Area.
Right, the dinner. which was supposed to be a fun night out with a group of people.
And we just ended up in the corner, ignoring everyone else, venting for like 3 hours.
We did. But the realization we had was so important. You see the system mechanics, the cause, and I see the human consequence, the pain. And we just agreed that night that complaining is easy, but finding ethical solutions, that's rare.
Which leads us to the focus of today's deep dive. We found something, a concept coming out of the UK called the Blossom Society, or TBS.
And I remember when you first sent me the white paper on this, I was very skeptical.
You were extremely skeptical.
I mean, the Blossom Society sounds like a cult.
Yep.
Or a very expensive yoga retreat. I thought, great, another community buzzword.
Which is a fair assumption in this market. There's a lot of wellness theater out there.
But then I started reading into the actual philosophy. And I realized this isn't just another dating app with a better font.
No, it's definitely not. TBS is pitched as a culture shift. It's a direct response to what they call the endless swipe economy.
Okay, so what does that actually mean? Because culture shift sounds nice, but how does it work in practice?
It all comes down to their core philosophy, which is really the hook for this whole deep dive. Education before access.
Okay, let's stop there. Education before access. That is the exact opposite of every single app on my phone right now.
Correct. The standard Silicon Valley model is growth at all costs. That means frictionless entry. Download the app, sign up in 30 seconds, start swiping, reduce the barrier to entry to 0. TBS says, no, stop.
They actually put up a gate.
They do. They believe that unlike most platforms that just let everyone in and then try to moderate the chaos later, which, by the way, never works, you have to set the standard at the door.
So in practice, what does this education look like? It's not like a math test, right? I don't have to solve for X to get a date.
No, thankfully no math. It's about social signaling and skills. Before a user can interact with the community at all, before they can message, match, or even browse profiles, they have to engage with the curriculum. We're talking about modules on emotional intelligence, on consent, on respectful interaction, on how to reject someone without destroying them.
That is fascinating. It's almost like getting a driver's license before you're allowed on the highway.
That's the perfect analogy. We wouldn't let someone drive a 2-ton vehicle without proving they know the rules of the road. Why do we let people into our most intimate lives without proving they know the basics of human decency?
And this touches on something I see all the time. The problem isn't always that people are bad or toxic.
Yeah.
It's a lack of skill. We've lost the skill of connection. People don't know how to handle rejection gracefully. They don't know how to have a hard conversation without just ghosting.
Exactly. We've let those muscles atrophy because the apps made it so easy to avoid them. Ghosting is easy. Having a hard conversation is hard. TBS aims to reteach those skills. They're basically saying, if you want to be here, you have to agree to behave like a human being, not a user.
But from a tech perspective, this seems incredibly risky. You're adding friction, you're making it harder to join. Doesn't that just kill your growth metrics?
In the traditional model, oh, absolutely. Investors would hate this. It slows down user acquisition significantly. You aren't going to go viral overnight. But, and this is the big question TBS is asking, what if we didn't optimize for clicks? What if we optimize for trust?
Optimization for trust. That sounds radical.
It is radical. Building for trust is harder. It's so much slower. You won't get 1 billion users in year 1. But the users you do get, they're safe, they're invested, they are accountable. And that is sustainable.
And that word brings us right back to our mission, human sustainability. If we build environments where trust is the baseline, not the exception, we stop eroding people.
Right. Think about it. If you walk into a room, a digital room, where you know that everyone else in there has passed that same curriculum, where everyone has agreed to the same high standard of conduct, what happens to your nervous system?
It relaxes.
Yeah.
I don't have to be in a defensive audition mode. I don't have to armor up just to check my messages.
Exactly. The environment itself does the heavy lifting of safety, so you don't have to. And that changes the nature of the connection. It moves it from a transaction to an interaction.
I love that. It reminds me of the old concept of third places, community centers or churches, local pubs, places that have norms and rules. You don't run around screaming in a library because the space itself demands respect.
Precisely. The internet has been a no man's land without norms. TBS is trying to build a digital third place with walls and values.
But is there a risk here? I mean, who decides the curriculum? Who gets to decide what good behavior is? It sounds a little Paternalistic.
It is, and that is a very valid critique. Whenever you have a gated community, you run the risk of elitism or bias. Who sets the standard?
Yeah.
But I would argue that the alternative, the complete lack of standards we have now, is worse. We are currently letting the algorithm decide, and the algorithm is a sociopath.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a human-written curriculum than a black box algorithm that just feeds on my anxiety.
At least with a curriculum, it's transparent.
Yeah.
You can read the values, you can agree or disagree. With the current apps, you're just a lab rat in an experiment you never even signed up for.
So to summarize what we're seeing here with TBS, it's really about prioritizing values before volume.
And accountability before anonymity.
It's creating an environment where the rules protect you rather than trap you. It's actually wild that this feels revolutionary, but in this day and age, asking for basic decency and education before letting strangers interact, it is a revolutionary act.
It really is, and it raises a really important question about the future. If TBS works, and look, it's still early days, let's be clear, but if it works, it proves that we aren't doomed to this dystopian swipe culture.
Right. It proves that the problem isn't human nature. We aren't just naturally selfish ghosting zombies. The problem is the container we've been forced into.
The problem is the design. If you change the incentives, you change the behavior. If you put a human in a cage that rewards anxiety, they will be anxious. If you put them in a garden that rewards patience, well, they might just blossom.
Oh, nice tie-in to the name. I see what you did there.
I had to do it.
So what does this all mean for the person listening right now? The person who might be that fine on paper patient, struggling with that quiet loneliness.
It means you aren't broken. That is the single most important thing I want you to hear. If you feel burned out by modern dating, if you feel lonely despite being online all day, it's not because you're flawed, it's because the system is heavy.
The system is heavy, and it wasn't built for your heart, it was built for your time.
But the existence of projects like the Blossom Society suggests that the pendulum might be swinging back. We are remembering that connection is a practice.
And like any practice, it can be learned or relearned. You can learn to be known rather than just noticed.
Precisely.
So we want to leave you with a challenge today. We aren't going to ask you to rate and review, though that's always nice. We want to do something a little different.
Yeah, let's start a real conversation.
We want you to share this deep dive with just one person in your life who fits that profile. Successful, busy, but maybe struggling with that quiet drift. Send this to them and use it to start an honest conversation.
Ask them the question we raised. Do you feel noticed or do you feel known? And just see where that takes you.
I love that. It's a scary question, but it's a real one. And here's a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. We've spent the last decade treating connection like a marketplace, shopping for humans like their products.
But could the future of connection be built like a society? A place with citizens, duties, and shared values, not just consumers?
That is the question. Thank you for diving in with us.
Thanks for listening.
Less scrolling.
More soul.
See you next time.